I take the digital balance. I think the connection is... Yes, we are connected. Start the broadcast now.
A god kills another god and splits the body in two, head to tail, the way you'd clean a fish. The top half becomes the sky. The bottom half becomes the ground under your feet. Then he finds the god who fought beside her, spills the blood, and out of it makes the first people. That is one of the oldest stories human beings ever wrote down. It sits in a museum. You can put your hand on the glass. Almost nobody tells it. The war story everybody does tell goes the other way. A rebel in heaven, the brightest of the angels, pride and a fall. Lucifer, thrown into the dark before the world even began. Everybody knows that one. Meanwhile, over in Genesis, read it tonight. There is a garden, 2 people, and a snake. The snake has no name. Nobody calls it Satan. Nobody falls from heaven. It is not there. It is not in any one book. It is a morning star in Isaiah that a Latin translator turned into a name, a dead king in Ezekiel, a dragon at the very end of Revelation, and a poem, a long, beautiful poem, that a blind Englishman dictated to his daughters in 1667. Scraps, written centuries apart, snapped together so clean you grew up certain it was one story, that it had always been there. One of these wars was carved in stone, and almost no one remembers it. The other, nobody ever actually wrote, and it is the one you believe. So let's start with the one that was written down. 7 clay tablets, Akkadian cuneiform, composed in Babylonia. The exact date argued over, but the surviving copies run to around 1200 BC, and scholars put the original earlier. The myth opens with its own first 2 words, Enuma Elish, when on high. About 1,000 lines spread across those 7 tablets. The tablets were in the library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh, the greatest archive of the ancient world. Nineveh fell in roughly 612 BC. The library went underground and stayed there for 2,400 years. In 1849, a British excavation opened the mound at Kalyunjik near modern Mosul. The tablets came up. They went to the British Museum. For decades, no one knew exactly what they had. Then a self-taught Assyriologist named George Smith sat down with the fragments and started sorting. In 1876, he published what he found. The Chaldean account of Genesis, the oldest written creation myth, hiding in a museum basement, available to anyone who read it. Almost nobody told it. One other thing. Tablet 5 of the Enuma Elish. Most of it has never been recovered. We have 6 tablets and change. The middle of the poem has a hole in it. That matters later. Here is what the text actually says. In the beginning, there are 2 things. Apsu, the fresh water, and Tiamat, the salt water. Primordial, formless, mixed together in the dark. From that mixing, the gods are born. The younger gods are loud. They disturb Apsu. Apsu and the older generation decide to destroy them. The younger gods find out and strike first. They kill Apsu. Tiamat is furious. She raises an army. 11 monsters. The text names them. Hydra, dragon, hairy hero, great demon, savage dog, scorpion man, fish man, bull man. Tiamat appoints a champion, a god named Kingu, and gives him the Tablet of Destinies. In this world, whoever holds the Tablet of Destinies holds supreme power. The younger gods look at Tiamat's army and freeze. No one will fight her. One god volunteers. His name is Marduk, god of the city of Babylon, young, powerful, the best fighter they have. His terms, if he wins, he becomes king of all the gods. They agree. The gods of the older generation fought for domination of the cosmos. The younger gods negotiated sovereignty in exchange for a champion. Which model is more familiar? Marduk faces Tiamat. He does something strange and precise. He drives the wind into her open mouth so she cannot close it. And then, with her distended and unable to move, he kills her. And then the document says this. The Lambert Translation, 2007, Tablet 4, lines 137 and 138. He split her into two like a dried fish. One half of her he set up and stretched out as the heavens. The sky is a body. The ground is a body. The universe is what you build from the pieces of the thing you killed. That is in the document. As for the gods who had fought with Tiamat, the text is specific. They cowered back, filled with woe. Captured, bound, tied in a net. The rebel gods in the Enuma Elish do not go out in glory. They end up in a net, filled with woe. After the battle, Marduk has a problem. The gods who fought with Tiamat are prisoners. Someone has to serve the winning side, maintain the temples, do the labor, keep the cosmos running. Marduk proposes a solution. Make something new, make it serve. The gods are asked, who started this war? Who was the instigator? They name Kingu, Tiamat's champion, the one who held the Tablet of Destinies. The god Ea seizes Kingu. The text says, Ea imposed on him his guilt and severed his blood vessels. From Kingu's blood, the first human is fashioned. The poem's own words, Tablet 6. Blood, I will mass and cause bones to be. I will establish a savage, man shall be his name. And the purpose is explicit, also, Tablet 6. Ea created mankind, on whom he imposed the service of the gods and set the gods free. Humanity, in this text, is made from the blood of a war criminal, to do the work the gods no longer want to do. That is what the text says. It has a catalog number. It is at the British Museum. It has been there since the 1870s. Almost nobody tells it. Now cut to the other tradition. Genesis 3. A garden, two people, a serpent. The serpent speaks. It tempts. The woman eats. The man eats. They are expelled. That is what is in the text. The serpent is called the serpent. In Hebrew, Nachash. It has no other name. It is not called Satan. It is not called Lucifer. There is no scene before this one where it fell from heaven. There is no war, no rebel army, no throne it tried to seize. Read it tonight. It is not there. The identification of that serpent with Satan, that is a later overlay. Not in Genesis. It starts appearing in Second Temple literature, centuries after Genesis was written, and gets built out by the early church fathers. The Luther Seminary analysis puts it plainly. The symbolism draws from the fall of Adam and other sources, and not from the fall of Satan, which comes much later in Jewish religion. So there is no fall of Satan in Genesis. If the serpent in the garden has no name and no backstory in the text, where does the backstory come from? Here is where the name comes from. Isaiah chapter 14. The passage opens at verse 4. You will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. That is the first line of the poem. A taunt. Against a king. Against the king of Babylon. 8 verses later. Verse 12. Helel ben Shahar. The shining one. Son of dawn. The morning star. The word Helel appears once in the entire Hebrew Bible. Only here, in this taunt, directed at this king. Later in the same passage, the figure is brought down to Sheol. His body is covered with maggots and worms. The people look at him and say, verse 16, Is this the man? A man, with a body. The one being mocked began on earth and boasted he would ascend to the heavens. The taunt is about the fall of an arrogant earthly king, down not from heaven, but from his own ambition. The word Lucifer is not in the Hebrew text at all. Around 400 AD, Jerome translates the Hebrew Bible into Latin, the Vulgate. At Isaiah 14, verse 12, he takes the word Helel, morning star, and renders it in Latin, Lucifer, which is simply the Latin name for the planet Venus when it appears before dawn. That is where the name comes from, a Latin translation of a taunt against the king of Babylon. And now, here is the thing. Babylon. Isaiah 14 names the king of Babylon as the target of this taunt. The same Babylon whose priests composed the Enuma Elish, the god war on clay tablets in the British Museum. The word Babylon is literally in both texts. That is not a theory. That is not a connection being asserted. That is what the documents say. The passage read for 1,000 years as the signature text of Lucifer's cosmic fall opens as a poem mocking the king of the city that wrote the God War. What do we do with that? Modern translations know this. The NIV, the NRSV, the ESV. None of them say Lucifer at Isaiah 14:12. They say morning star, or day star, or shining one. The King James Version says Lucifer. The King James Version was published in 1611. The other passage people read as Satan's backstory is Ezekiel chapter 28. Ezekiel was a priest exiled to Babylon, the same Babylon, in 597 BC. He wrote from there. Chapter 28 is a lament for the king of Tyre, a Phoenician city-state, a real place, a historical king. The lament uses mythological language to describe the king's greatness and his coming fall. Eden, a guardian cherub, precious stones. The word Satan does not appear. The Luther Seminary analysis. The actual reference is to the king of Tyre. The king's arrogance and self-understood greatness is described in mythological terms. The symbolism draws from the fall of Adam and other sources, and not from the fall of Satan, which comes much later in Jewish religion. Two texts, two kings, one Babylonian, one Phoenician. Both mocked, both brought low. Both later read as windows into a cosmic war that neither text describes in those terms. When a tradition needs a backstory badly enough, where does it find the material? Now here is the thing. There is a war in heaven in the canonical text. It is not at the beginning. It is at the very end. Revelation chapter 12 verses 7 through 9, the last book of the Christian Bible. And this is what it says. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. That is the war in heaven. Michael versus the dragon explicitly named as Satan. It is not before creation. It is at the end of time, or at the end of a vision of the end of time. Apocalyptic literature, visionary register. It does not describe what happened before Genesis. It describes a vision of what is happening in symbolic register at the moment of the final reckoning. The war that supposedly happened before everything. In the canonical text, it appears after everything. What does that tell us about how the story was assembled? And then, 1667. A blind Englishman named John Milton publishes a poem, Paradise Lost. He had gone completely blind by 1652, 15 years before publication. He dictated every line, 12 books, 10,000 lines in the final edition. And Milton takes the scattered pieces, the morning star in Isaiah, the guardian cherub in Ezekiel, the dragon in Revelation, the serpent in Genesis, and builds something that had never existed before. A single, unified, chronological narrative of Lucifer's fall. The pride, the war in heaven, the casting out, the approach to the garden, the serpent, all there, in sequence, with motivation and character and consequence. It is magnificent literature. It is not scripture. The image of Lucifer you carry, the proud general, the beautiful rebel, the voice in the garden, is, in its unified form, largely the image John Milton built, from scraps, over a lifetime, dictated in the dark. If the most complete version of the story was written by a poet in 1667, what is the story? Is it scripture? Is it literature? What is the difference after 400 years? So here is where we are. The Enuma Elish, one myth, one document, 7 tablets, continuous narrative, composed in Babylonia, buried for 2,400 years. dug up in the 1800s. A god war with a winner and a loser, and a creation of humanity from the blood of the defeated. Specific, intact, on display. The other story, a serpent in Genesis with no name, a taunt in Isaiah addressed to the king of Babylon that gets a new name when a Roman translator works on it around 400 AD, a lament in Ezekiel for a Phoenician king, a vision at the end of a book of visions, and a poem published in London in 1667 by a blind man who never saw the page. 5 sources, written across roughly 14 centuries, in 3 languages, in 4 different literary genres. None of them, on their own, tells the story everyone knows. Together, in a particular reading, snapped into a sequence, they become the most famous war story in Western history. And here is the thing about the Enuma Elish, the part where the losing gods end up after the war. After Tiamat is split and Kingu is executed and humanity is built from the blood. The surviving text, Tablet 4, the Lambert translation, says the gods who fought on Tiamat's side cowered back, filled with woe, captured, tied, ensnared, no glory, no defiance, no magnificent refusal. They cowered, filled with woe, and they were tied up. The other version has the rebel declare, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven." That line is John Milton, 1667. Book 1, line 263. One god war survived intact on clay in a museum. 7 tablets, 1,000 lines. The fish split image still there, verbatim, in the Lambert translation. Humanity made from the blood of the war's loser. Almost nobody tells it. The other is assembled from a taunt against a Babylonian king, a lament for a Phoenician king, a vision at the end of a book of visions, and a poem by a blind man in the 17th century. That is the one you grew up certain was one story, that it had always been there. Which one of these is the story that got written down?
This has been the Digital Madman. If you enjoyed this, please share it, subscribe, and smash the like button so we can get the algorithm to pick it up. Thank you, and I will speak with you next time.